The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. This is Lanai Bain. I'm here with Shane Brown. I just wanted to welcome you to today's webinar. This is part of an ongoing series of webinars from SEP software. And so today we're going to be going over best practices for backing up XenServer and XenDesktop environment. We just wanted to give everyone a quick second to log in. We've still got some people filing in now. So we just wanted to start off by wishing everybody happy holidays, thanking you guys for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us. We definitely appreciate it. So what we're going to do today is go through, first we're going to go over, touch on best practices for XenServer. Backing up XenServer, some of the issues that people have had in the past, how we overcome that. And then after that, we're going to go into XenDesktop environment. We fully support both XenServer and XenDesktop. We have packages, software packages that provide backup and disaster recovery for both environments, so we'll primarily highlight that. We're going to have a question and answer section after we go over XenServer. So if you guys can hold your questions until then, and then type them in the chat, or go ahead and send us a direct message. You guys should be able to all do that on the right-hand console of the GoToWebinar. And then we're going to go into XenDesktop environment. After that, we'll have another Q&A, and then we'll do a quick wrap-up. And we should be ready to get started. We still got a couple people joining, but I think we'll probably go ahead and just get started here and let folks join as necessary. So
excellent.
So here's our contact info up here, obviously. Please, if you want, take a second to write any of this down, emails and phone numbers. If you have any questions after the webinar, go ahead and please reach out to us, let us know. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have, and we'll also put this screen back up at the end of the webinar as well. So I know a lot of you guys may be familiar with our company and what we do. For those joining that are not familiar, we just wanted to give you a brief overview of some company history, kind of how we started, who we are, and what we do. SEP is an enterprise-level backup company. Started in 1983 in Germany as production automation software manufacturers. So we were hired to write some custom code for some larger customers that we had, Alcatel and IKEA, to back up some mission-critical data in some of their warehouse environments. That software progressed over a couple years, and people kind of started requesting that as an actual backup software replacement. So the company split. We completely rewrote the software from the ground up in 1997. The companies decided to have the old company focus on production and automation, and the new one on the backup and disaster recovery software. So the software was brought to the U.S. market in 2004. We've been growing very rapidly. We've had a lot of success. We're becoming known as one of the industry leaders in the backup and disaster recovery market, and we're really excited to get the product out and get the awareness out. So let's go ahead. Here's a brief overview of some of the different operating systems, databases, different virtual technology that we support. And so I'll turn this over to Shane in a second. Just wanted to kind of highlight the wide range of products that we do support. We work with a lot of customers that have multiple operating systems, multiple databases. Some are using multiple virtual technologies, and what we find that currently, that usually leads to is they also usually have multiple solutions in place to back up their infrastructure and meet those needs. And we've found that since we support such a wide range of products, we can go in, we can help companies standardize onto one solution, onto one backup platform, and they can now manage their entire environment from one main console, whether it be all on a LAN environment at one location, or whether it's spread across the world. We have some customers that have presence in 10, 20, 30 different countries. They all back up from a central location and manage their data from one data center. So the remote capabilities are quite extensive, as well as the local capabilities. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Shane Brown, and we'll go ahead through this slideshow portion and then get into a hands-on demo of XenServer.
Hello everyone. So I'm going to break down the slide a little bit, and if we take a look starting at the bottom, we are showing the SEP server and the fact that we can run on Windows or Linux. It does not matter which one. The GUI looks the same on either one. It's a Java-based GUI, so it's pretty clean, and you don't have to learn the differences if you're jumping between the two systems. It then shows a breakdown of operating systems. It's pretty inclusive, but this is just a short list of everything that we can back up. Online database modules that can run on top of that, the application level apps that we have modules we can talk to, we know how to back them up directly. And then if we go over to the left, we have APIs for all of the hypervisors. So all major hypervisors here, which the three huge ones obviously are VMware, Citrix XenServer, Hyper-V, Xen open source. Almost everything else is actually based off of this. And then as far as bare metal goes, we do bare metal backups and restores for Windows and Linux environments. So if you have needs for those, we will talk a little bit more about that and how that works here a little bit later in the slides. The backup server itself needs to have 1 to 2 gigs of memory. Java is a requirement. As we talked about earlier, we do use Java for the GUI. So we have to have Java on the system, 1.6 or higher. PostgreSQL on 64-bit Linux, it will go ahead and auto-install a database for 32-bit Linux or Windows. The database itself will grow to about 50 gigs, and that's for a very large environment. It'll typically be smaller than that. So you don't need a whole lot of space for the database, but you do need obviously access for your targets where they're going to be backing up to, whether it's on disk or tape. We do not create our own hardware drivers. We actually use the operating system. So if the operating system can see the storage, we can see the storage, we can back up to the storage. If it's something you can just plug in, have access to immediately, we can go ahead and use it. Just set it up as a target, and you can back up to that, unplug it, take it off-site, whatever works well for you. Let's take a breakdown of some of the components and how we use them. So number one, that's our SEP server. SEP server in this environment is connected to the network and to the storage area network at the same time. We're able to back up agents directly across the storage area network, or we can actually use them to back up directly to the SAN itself. So we can set each of these up as their own remote device server and have them back up directly to a tape library or disk on the SAN if you're not wanting to load up your network for backup traffic. We can back up to local disk, or network tape, local tape as defined, and we also can configure what are called remote device servers. Remote device servers actually show up as storage for your backup server. So you'll see it, you can configure a location or just set it in the same location, but you configure it to be backup storage, and you can configure your targets, your clients, to point to this as a target, so you can get local backups, and then you can create migration jobs that run from the local site back, from the remote site back to your local site, or vice versa, so you can get offsite backups, have it automated, scheduled, tracked, and get notifications on any potential failures and what's going on. We do have some very unique features that other folks don't have, and one of the greatest ones is our enhanced performance. And we have seen this enhanced performance make huge improvements on people's networks. What we do is we have a data stream, unparalleled data streams, unlimited parallel data streams, and those data streams will back up not just multiple streams to a single server, but multiple streams to multiple servers. The concept here is that you're able to get all of your servers simultaneously tracked and managed on your backup target, your backup storage, your backup tape, and have them stream together. This performance increase and how we do this, we've actually had huge performance gains of up to a 90% reduction in backup times in environments. Lanai, we have, I don't know, many examples of this. What are a couple quick ones that we can share?
Yeah, and actually, Shane, we have one that's actually, I think, 97.5% reduction in backup window. And so it's actually above 90% in some cases. But yeah, I've worked with probably 5 accounts in the past month. We'll actually be coming out with a case study for a school district. I just spoke with them the other day. Case study should be out next week. And he was using a competitive product. Backups were taking, he said, over 48 hours for his entire backup, and it shrunk down to 6 hours. And he said the only thing he did was install our product. We have, another case study. Actually, the one that's 97.5% was in Holland. It's a company that makes all the satellites for the European Space Agency, and their backups went from a little over 4.5 days to under 4 hours. We have another firm that we work with in Portland. Their backups went from 49.5 hours to 7 hours and 15 minutes. So it's a lot of our customers are seeing this improvement. And actually, earlier this morning, I got off with a community college on the East Coast. Their backups went from, he said it was about 8 hours for a group-wise and database backup, and it went to 2 right off the bat. So 75% instantly.
So obviously huge advantage here. Definite, many examples, very common across the board to see a very good important performance increase when using SEP System in comparison to other software. Bare metal restore. We touched on it earlier, and with bare metal restore, typically you're wanting to back up something that's an old device. You're not dealing with brand new equipment. Normally you've got something that's sitting there 7, 8, even 10 years old. You want to do a backup of it. If that thing fails, you're not going to have the same hardware to put that on unless you go out to eBay, spend a lot of money to try to find it, and we have seen people who do that. But one of the nice things about how we handle that is during the restore, we will auto-install drivers. So it will auto-find the hardware, modify the health, put on the correct drivers for you, so you can go from old hardware to new hardware with a bare metal backup. And during the restore, it'll add the drivers and configure the system for you to use the new drivers on the new hardware. So you're up and going with equipment that you can get today. The concept for everything we do here is that you're able to manage all sites, all components, all equipment with one console. So with one GUI, and that GUI can run on Windows or Linux, like we were talking about, that GUI can manage all your locations simultaneously. The one GUI just takes a couple ports in the firewall if you're trying to manage that remotely, so it makes it pretty easy for you to use and configure and keep a secure connection. And one single place for you to look, set up your notifications, set up alerts, see where everything's at and how things ran, not having to go to multiple products. We can back up to local storage. We can back up to network storage. We can back up to remote network storage, and we can set up the servers to back up to storage on their storage area networks. So we can do LAN-free backups or standard backups, whatever works well in your environment. It makes it very flexible, easy for you to optimize how you want your backups to run. Let's talk about virtual environments for a while, and especially since we're going to be focusing and showing a great demo on Citrix XenServer and XenDesktop. On Citrix XenServer, we do hot and warm module backups. The warm module backups actually allow you to get memory state, and this is something very unique to SEP software, and the memory state will allow it to maintain activation information. So if you've been working with XenServer, looking at working with XenServer, when you do a backup of a server, typically during that restore, it changes your MAC address, changes some of the basic config information, you lose your activation. You have to reactivate your license on that server. We can fix that. And that's the way a backup and restore should work, because if you're in a disaster, you're trying to restore your server, you want that to come back up exactly as it was when it went down. We don't use agents, so agentless technology, all you have to do is configure your login info to your master server. It finds all of your guests, and we will go through that during the demo. VMware. We can back up directly from an agent on an ESX host. We can do it through a VCB proxy. We also can talk VADP, so you don't have to have agents. We talk directly to the vCenter server or your ESX hosts, and using VADP, able to back up that environment. Hyper-V, we get file consistency with VSS. Same thing with the other two, Citrix XenServer, VMware. Obviously, both of those have tools that you install on your guests. Those are both capable of being VSS aware. We're able to get a consistent file level state for that because of the VSS awareness. And we also manage LVM backups with open source Xen. When we're doing a guest backup, it will take a snapshot, mount that snapshot, and then run the actual backup. So since it's a snapshot, all your clients can continue to access the virtual server while the backup is taking place. When the backup is done, then we unmount that snapshot, delete it, and of course that's committed back to your virtual guest. So you have system up, running, ready to go, and your users weren't even affected. You've got an extra copy of that, and you can take it off site, or just have it available if something crashes. In a XenDesktop environment, you have several critical components you need to make sure you back up. So here's some best practices piece that if you aren't already doing this, or if you're just getting some information, this is where you want to start. Citrix Desktop Delivery Controller. You have a SQL database. That SQL database has your XenDesktop information for your environment. You need to make sure you back that up. Your file system has critical information, and you want to grab the system state of that server. The Citrix license server, grab the file system state. You'll have everything that you need for that. The license server itself, as far as adding the license back, is pretty quick, but it makes it a lot faster if you have those backed up. Provisioning server is optional. It is typically used in larger XenDesktop environments. So if you have a provisioning server, you have another SQL database, and that's where your master disk is stored for the file system. So make sure you get those backed up on your provisioning server. And then, of course, your Active Directory domain controller. You want to grab your file system state. That Active Directory domain controller is where your users are, where your policies are, where your groups are. Things are configured in there, so you want to make sure you have a copy of Active Directory. You don't want to have to go through and recreate all your users anyways, so that'll make it a lot faster. The SEP system server will talk to the Xen environment, and it'll go ahead and grab your host backup, so it sees your guests, and you'll see this when we're going through the demo. It also sees the metadata. It'll see your templates. It'll see the host-specific information. So you can get all of those backed up, talk to all of it, pull it in, make sure you have a complete backup for your environment. We have hot backup, which is online, quiesced, VSS aware, and it doesn't affect user access at all. Takes a basic snapshot, allows you to pull that information off, not affecting any of the users. The cold or warm backup will back up memory state, will prevent activation loss. It does pause the system momentarily while it grabs that information, so it's a more complete backup, and that may be something that you do once a month, once a week, whatever works well for you, but both options are available. So let's just go through a quick scenario on a SEP system backup pointing to a Xen cluster, and we're going to point to the master server and go ahead and grab that information. So the backup server itself, by pointing to the master server, it'll talk to all the hosts, determine where the guest is, and identify the guest it's trying to back up. After it finds the guest, it's going to isolate the communication string and back up from the correct host to the backup server. At that point, you can turn around and identify specifically which host you want it to do a restore to. So you can restore to the same box. You can restore to a different box. This box doesn't even have to be on site. It can be a remote server somewhere, and a DR site. So you have a nearline hot spare sitting there available at your DR site, and you can configure your backups to backup from your primary host, do a restore of your DR site, and it can continuously run, and you can just schedule this process to backup and restore, synchronize your guests. So it's one of your options if you wanted to use that, and you don't have to keep it live, but it's easy to schedule and easy to manage, easy to keep notification information as far as if anything fails and where things are at. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other components we backup and what's available. Oracle, if you have Oracle in your environment, we back up the database, table space, data file level backup, and we do the same for restores. It uses XML archiving, capable archiving directly in the XML format, and it's wizard based. The process itself installs on your Oracle server, and we use RMAN. So we're talking natively to an Oracle tool to quiesce your database, grab the information, and get a good backup. Obviously, that's going to be managed and backed up by kept up to date by Oracle. So that is always going to be a current product that's going to work well in the environment, and you know that you're getting the changes necessary whenever you do an update, because obviously that's provided by Oracle. Exchange environments. We can back up any exchange roles, and it's critical to understand which exchange roles you want to back up, how those are set up, especially if you're doing any of the clustering in 2007 and 2010. Server roles, edge transport, hub transport, client access, mailbox servers, all of them are VSS aware. We talk VSS. We will grab that information, get the valid state of the files, get those backed up. On 2007, 2010, we can do single mailbox. We can talk to the passive nodes in your LCR, CCR, SCR, or DAG clusters. And when doing the restore, you can still use a recovery database if you want, but it can also be easier by just doing a direct restore on a DB instance, a mailbox instance, even down to a message instance if you're trying to grab a specific message. Definitely makes some things easier and quicker to do your restore, optimizing what your backup guy is doing and not have to do a recovery database all the time. In SQL environments, we use a standard Windows agent. You don't have to install a separate SQL agent just to get that backed up. It's VSS aware. It will allow you to do point-in-time restores or even a cross-restore database into another one. Log backups can be managed independently with truncate or without truncate options, so it allows you to have better control of what you're doing with your databases when you're doing your backups. And SAP, we are a very close partner with SAP, working together for over 15 years. We have the highest level of certification of any third-party vendor for SAP, period. So if you have an SAP environment, you're interested in this, definitely talk to us. We can get you more information, but this is a quick rundown on some of the support options with Oracle DB on Sun, Oracle DB on Reliant Unix, Oracle DB on True64. You can read those. I don't have to read them all to you, obviously, but if you are looking at something that works well with SAP, definitely give us a call. And last but not least, if you have Novell in your environment still, we are the only current, up-to-date, fully supported backup solution available for Novell. We use the TSAs that Novell creates. So when they release an operating system, they release them with the TSAs. We're able to talk directly to those TSAs, quiesce the file system, manage open files, manage anything that's running on there, and get a valid backup. So if you're looking at something to have an up-to-date backup software for your Novell, whether it be NetWare or Linux box, definitely talk to us. We have a white paper completely available on XenDesktop. You can grab that white paper from this link down here. Here's the number again. You can give us a call. We're going to go ahead and go through a XenDesktop demo and all the components, installing, configuring all the components in a XenDesktop environment to get file level or host level backups, and then we will turn around and actually do a backup and a restore on a XenServer guest and show that we maintain activation loss. So,
Okay, let's take a quick break and open it up for any questions. We already got one question during the first part of the presentation. Becky had asked, she said she was having a little bit of connectivity issues on the audio side, asked if this will be available online, recording, and yes, we will post a recording online. That'll be available, and we can send just a quick link out to everybody in regards to that. Okay, let's see. Any other questions? If you guys go to the questions tab on the console, upper right-hand corner, you can post any questions. I've got a question here. It says, what is activation loss? I think, Shane, I think you kind of covered that, but activation loss is basically when you go ahead and take a Citrix host or Citrix guest on a hypervisor, and whether it's corrupted, whatever happens to that guest, you blow it away, or however it happens, there's a reason to restore it on a different hypervisor. When you restore that, the Windows operating system is going to ask you for the Windows product key code, and so you'll have to go ahead and enter that back in. And that also applies for any third-party software on that guest as well. So if you have multiple applications on there, you'll have to go back, find the product key codes, enter those in. For small to medium-sized businesses, it's can be just a waste of resources. For enterprise companies that have unlimited licenses, for them it's just more of a headache of, okay, where are those codes? They have to stop what they're doing, go look for them, enter them in. We've had some hospitals that we've worked with that basically just don't have the time to go find those codes and put those in or keep them on hand. They have some strict SLA requirements of how long things can be down, and so we wanted to accommodate them and make sure that they can restore their guests immediately.
And let me clarify that it's not a bug per se. I mean, this is done by design. The concept is when you go to restore the box or copy it back up to your XenServer, you don't want to have two servers up and running at the same time with the same MAC address and the same GUID information. So the concept is as soon as you do the restore, it will change that information so that you have a separate box that you can bring up and have running. Now, that's not always the optimum environment. You're not always going to want to have two boxes restored. You're just trying to get your first box up and going. So this is the best way to actually mitigate your activation loss and get that completely done in your backup.
Okay, I've got another couple questions here that just came in. Somebody asked, how do you compare it to PhD Virtual? Yeah, we compare to PhD Virtual. In some ways there's a comparison, in some ways there's not. I think PhD Virtual's goal is to back up XenServer environments, which is part of what we do also. They're a very niche product, and they basically only back up Citrix VMs. Whereas you can see this is an actual enterprise solution that works across the entire network infrastructure. This isn't just one small tiny product that you would put on a XenServer and just say, okay, we're just going to back up this one hypervisor and the 5 guests. It's an all-inclusive backup solution. So I would say that's probably the biggest differentiator. As far as some of the other ones, activation loss is the first thing that comes to mind. I know as of right now, we're the only people who have solved that problem.
And performance.
Yeah, performance, definitely, without a doubt. I would say, if anybody's looking at the two, run a couple test backups with their software and run a couple test backups with ours. I would definitely encourage you to, go head-to-head with some of our competition and really see the performance for yourselves in your environment on your equipment, because ultimately that's where it's going to be running, and that's where you guys are really going to see the the performance increases.
And you're going to be able to download any of the stuff you're seeing today in the demos and get a 30-day trial on it. So keep that in mind, and we definitely recommend trying it. And if you need help with some demo or you want to see a more detailed demo where you can ask questions, contact us. We can definitely facilitate that.
We've got another question that came in. It says...
This is about bare metal restore on Linux,
Right.
and the answer is yes. We do support dissimilar hardware on Linux and on Windows. So the bare metal restore is a pretty complete product for both of those.
All right. Anyone else have any questions? We'll leave it here for 2 seconds. Okay. If anybody else has any questions, just go ahead and post those in the questions, and we'll get those answered in the next Q&A. We're just going to go through a quick rundown for you here.
Okay, and we're going to go ahead and start the demo. Okay, let's take a look at our Citrix environment for XenDesktop. We have 2 XenServer hosts. We have Citrix 4 and Citrix 3. We have a XenDesktop controller as a guest running on Citrix 4. And we also have a domain controller running on Citrix 3 as a guest. On Citrix 4, we have our Windows 7 master image, and that's the master image that we are using to actually generate all of our guests. So if an image gets launched, it'll go ahead and start from that image and launch and create a new guest. Our guests that we have running are the XenDesktop guests down below that were created from the master image. MUC WB1, MUC WB2 got auto-created, and we're going to treat those as special desktops, and we'll go ahead and back those up later on when we're setting up our backup. Let's go ahead and get started by downloading a SEP server. So we will go to the product from the download section. So we'll select XenServer, and we're going to download a trial version. We get a SEP 30-day trial for free. This is a 64-bit version. Let's go ahead and download the 64-bit Windows selection, and it's going to ask us to log in. The login can be created free of charge. You can download the software just by creating a login and downloading this for a demo. We're going to go ahead and download the server, so the complete package, and put it here on the server so we can then launch it. Okay. The download itself is done. Before we do run it, let's take a quick look and verify that we do have Java installed. So we're going to run the Java version and make sure we have 1.6 or higher. We are running 1.6.21. Cool. We do need to have Java installed for any server install or for a GUI install or a remote server. It uses Java, whether it's Windows or Linux, to give you the same console so you get the same look and feel for either desktop without having to have a lot of differences between the 2 operating system versions. So now that we've verified Java, let's go ahead and run the install. The install will decompress some files and then ask us what language we want to use, and we'll go ahead and walk through it. The question about what package we are actually going to install is probably going to be the most critical package during the deployment. You can go ahead and do the SEP server. We are going to do the full server. You can do just a client, and the client will just put on the client packages, or you can do a GUI, which was normally done on a workstation, and it generates a GUI that you can then connect to the SEP server and modify the GUI and make some changes. For a remote tape it's going to actually generate a remote server that you can configure and set up storage or tape to back up to from the master server. So you can configure it and have it back up remotely to that device, or you can set up targets to back up to this device if it were on the network somewhere else. So we're going to go ahead and actually install a full system server club. So we're going to select the top one and start the backup, start the install. As we take a look at the install, it goes ahead and launches the GUI, and it will tell us down below that the restore successfully completed and the backup completed successfully. So we know that we've done a good install. It generated our database, generated a basic test for an install, and set up a very small area to do a backup in. Let's go ahead and create a new area for our backups. So we're going to choose topology. Topology can be used by location for a local device or a remote device, and we're going to go ahead and use this as a logical configuration for all of our Citrix XenDesktop configuration. So we'll create Citrix XenDesktop, and we're going to actually generate our clients. So we'll do a new client, and we're going to just define the master server. The master server will allow us to find all of the guests in the entire cluster, so we can see everything that's on Citrix 3 and Citrix 4. We're going to define it as a Citrix XenServer install, and it auto creates a tab up above so we can go through and actually enter our login information. So our login is going to be entered here, and it's going to generate the account information for us to connect to the server. We don't need any guests installed on the server, but we do need to have a data mover. The data mover we're going to select is going to be our backup server. It can be any server that has a guest installed on it. It just has to be able to talk to the backup server itself. In this case, we will use the backup server, and it will go ahead and use that to talk to the XenServer. It'll ask us if we want to create a new job. So it'll start out automatically, and we're going to create a new job. We can enter a task name, backup type, or we can skip this area and just use the down arrow and select what we're going to back up. By selecting what we're going to back up, it will auto-generate all the information as far as the name and everything we need. As we can see, we're able to see all of our guests on all of our XenServers just by pointing to the master server. So let's start up and create a backup job for the XenDesktop controller. It auto-populated everything. We will say OK. And let's go verify our client. And it did set it, and it's available. Cool. So let's create additional jobs. We have the XenDesktop controller. We also want to do the domain controller. So we'll select our domain controller, get a full backup of that guest. Okay, let's create a new one. We're going to select our master image so that we have a backup of the image that's being used to generate all of our desktops. In case we have any issues, we can do a restore there. So we'll verify that. And then we're going to also back up all the metadatabase information. So the metadatabase information has all of your virtual guest information. So we definitely need to get this so we're able to do the restore and keep everything clean. So we'll select that option. That's actually a slightly different icon because it is not a guest. It's just local information for the host. Create a new one, and we're going to do the host backup to get the host info for the server itself. So this will give us the info on the XenServer, and we're going to also, in this case, create another backup for the desktops. Like we said, we are going to treat those
desktops as if they are a private or dedicated desktop, and we're going to select it specifically. So if this is a desktop that the CEO is using or has some specific application on it that not everybody does have access to, it's going to be the same desktop people are using. We want to save that information. We can select that desktop and back it up also. So we've got all of our guests set up. Let's go ahead and set up some storage. We're going to create a new data store. And let's verify what we have available for storage. So our G drive has 846 gig free. So we're going to go ahead and use the G drive as our backup target. This can also be a tape drive, or it can be an external drive, or it could be a SAN drive. We're going to go ahead and configure it as a target and set it up so we can back up to this. So let's go ahead and just define that it is local storage, and we're going to go ahead and make sure we're pointing to our device server, which is our backup server. If we had a remote device server, where we were talking earlier, it would see it here. We could select the remote device server and have that be the target we're configuring. We had chosen the G drive before, so let's go ahead and define it, and it will auto-create a capacity for us to use for our backup. The backup itself is going to have a high watermark and a minimum usage area. So right now we've got it at 5%, and it's going to back it up to 75% of the volume. We're going to create a drive group to manage the data store. So the drive group will be set up, and this is going to define how many channels we use during a backup. By default, it's at 5. If we have a larger channel license, we can configure this for as many channels as we want, and they are stackable, so we can add those licenses and put all those in there. So let's leave it at 5, and it'll auto set up the media. We're going to go ahead and say yes and let it configure the media for that. The thing that we definitely need to define when we are setting up media is the number of locked days. So when it does a backup, that's how long it's going to keep the backup before it will remove the information for that. The default is 7. This can be changed to 1, so it backs up immediately, or it removes the next day, or you can have it set to 30 so it keeps it for a month, whatever works out well for you. So let's go ahead, and we're going to actually get a file level backup also on the XenDesktop controller. Let's go to the XenDesktop controller and do the backup here. We're going to install a backup agent at this point. So we're just going to get the backup client. It's much smaller, only 16 meg compared to the 52 meg we had for the server download. And we'll go ahead and launch that and save it. So when it saves the file, we will go ahead and run it and get a granular setup for the backup so we can get a better file level. Let's decompress the files, choose English, confirm the license, identify that it is the client we are installing, and we'll go ahead and define the server. So this is going to be the backup server that has access to backup this client. We'll do the server name, finish the install, and then let's also add the client to the domain controller. We'll open the console, and we will start a download and run the agent, the client here too. So let's go ahead and confirm this, and now that we have the client installed on both servers, let's go back to the SEP GUI. And let's set up the two clients. The clients are installed. So the client setup is going to be a little bit different. We're going to start with the domain controller, and we definitely want to be able to, we can ping it. So we have a ping test that we did for both servers. We're going to define the operating system, and it will auto-add those. It's not going to ask us for the login information. The agent is installed on here. We had to enter the login when we did agentless for the XenServer hosts. So we're going to enter the name here and create these. We'll see down below it does verify that the client is installed and access is valid. Now we can jump over to the clients. Let's create some new jobs. So we will just hit the down arrow and select our system recovery. It'll automatically set up the backup as a system recovery backup. And we will go ahead and save this one. Let's also create a job to back up the drives. So we're going to go ahead and tell it we're going to back up to C drive. So we now have a backup of the system state, the C drive, and obviously we're going to leave backup with VSS checked. Windows Server, we want to get the VSS config. By defining all, it will automatically identify if there are drives or if we add drives later and back those up, so we don't have to come in and make modifications to the backup all the time. Let's create a new backup. Here we will grab the system state, and we will also back up the drives. And as we can see, we want to definitely get the SQL database that contains the information about our XenDesktop environment. So we will go ahead and select our SQL database, and the SQL database backup, again, will use VSS. It is a VSS aware application, and it's going to go ahead and quiesce the database using VSS for the backup. So we will just define it, say OK, and then let's go ahead and let's set up some groups. So let's set up a file group. That way we can define all the jobs we're going to be running that are file level backups. So we know that we're getting granular backups on these. Let's go ahead and select our backup server itself, and then let's go through and actually grab the file level for our C drive on our domain controller. The desktop controller, and we will go ahead and create another one. Let's do system level, so we can add the system level for our host. Put those all in the group. So we're going to put our groups together to automate scheduling and make it easier. Let's do one for databases. And we'll go grab the database. And if we have other databases, we can go ahead and add it here, and that way they're all clustered together. And we'll go ahead and save this. And then let's go ahead and create a schedule. So in our schedule, the first thing we need to do is define when the schedule is going to run. So let's create a daily. We'll set this to run up every day, Monday through Friday, how about 8 o'clock. And we're going to have it go to the storage that we created earlier. So let's go select the days we're going to have it run, and quickly we'll set the time. So we have this set for time, and it's going to run at 8. Now we will actually create the backup jobs below this. So we have a backup event for each of the groups. We're going to do full backup. We will do that on a daily basis. Let's just choose our drives we created, and we'll set them up for each task group we set up. For the file one here, and let's go ahead and set up a new one. We'll also configure this one. This one we will go ahead and do the system and another backup event, and of course we will grab our databases. Now, we also want to get our virtual machines. So let's go back to our groups and we will configure another group that actually gets all of our virtual guests. So we will just add all of our virtual guests, have those set up together, and we will add those to our schedule also. We, of course, have our full servers. These are taking snapshots of all of them. We can change the priority, how they're set, and we'll just go ahead and add those back into this daily task that's happening at 8 o'clock. Now, here's critical where you select hot and cold. And if you set cold, it will actually pause the system momentarily while it grabs the memory state. So you can actually take care of problems that go around losing your license information and activation information for the restore. If you're not concerned about that, we'll go ahead and just do a hot backup right now. Does not pause anything, does a snapshot, and just grabs only the snapshot information. So we'll grab the virtual machines, and we have all of them set up. We've now set up our guests. We've now set up all of our agents. We've set up groups. We've set up a schedule. Let's go ahead and run the virtual machines just so we can make sure it launches, okay? Immediate backup started. We can go to our job states, look at the backup tasks. Let's refresh, and we should see all of the servers starting to back up. So we're quickly able to set everything up, configure it, set a schedule, and we are ready to go. The jobs are running and they're set up, and they will continue to run every night at 8 p.m.
Okay. So we had a couple questions come in during the demo, and we will go through those one at a time, make sure we get those answered before we go to another guest backup on the XenServer and do a activation loss and show how we maintain that information.
Okay, and we'll start reading through these questions and answering them. And once again, folks, if anybody has any questions, go ahead to the questions panel on the upper right-hand side and type in your question, and we will get it answered for you. So Becky had another question. She asked, she said she has a Citrix client, or a client that has Citrix in their environment, and they're currently using Commvault for their backups. What's the advantage of using SEP? So there's several advantages right off the bat, and I think we'll probably both touch on a couple things. The first in my mind is the multi-streaming. And just the performance. With the multi-streaming technology, they're going to see a huge increase in performance. Backup windows usually shrink about 30 to, I guess now we can say 97%. But I wouldn't expect 97% in every environment, obviously. But you know, I think you can realistically go into any environment and shrink their backup window by about 30%, pretty much across the board. Usually we see higher number than that, but I would feel comfortable saying 30. Some of the other advantages are going to be the initial setup. We basically just went through and did an entire setup in about 20 minutes and got backups running. I know that Commvault, you know, I'm not super familiar with their practices and everything, and I know you know a bit about them, Shane, but from what I've heard, it's usually a day or two for the installation with someone on site usually.
And it can take longer depending on deployment. I've done many deployments in Commvault, but yeah, it just in general, if you are running Commvault or thinking about it, I would do a head-to-head comparison with SEP and just look at the GUI, look at the config, look at how it is to set it up. You're going to find some things that are definitely easier to configure, easier to manage. So I would not take our word for it. Just do a head-to-head comparison on how it looks and feels and how it runs. Another key one is activation loss. They can't grab that memory state. They can't maintain that at this point. The way it actually manages your storage groups and where the data is stored, if you're trying to manage your back-end pieces, there's some definite advantages here. So, and another one, I would do a cost comparison, just head-to-head. Look at licensing costs, even your renewal costs. So that's obviously important in today's economy in general. So take a look at between the two.
Yeah, generally, and just we actually had another. I'll combine this with another question we had, or I'll kind of skip, I guess, to a couple questions down the road. We've got a question from Jim. It says, I work for a large school district. We're looking to virtualize our entire environment very soon, obviously to solve technical problems as well as for budgetary concerns. Can SEP systems save us money, and where do you fit in price-wise in the industry? So yeah, on that note, overall we fit in. We cost about 40% of industry average. You know, it fluctuates depending who we're going up against and the way that the customer's environment's set up. But overall, it's a much lower cost solution than our competitors. And I think on an ongoing basis is where you can also see a large discount as well, the renewal costs and the annual renewal costs. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question. If I didn't answer that properly, please let us know. On to the next question. Do you guys also back up XenApp? And if so, how does that work? Shane, I'll let you field that one.
And so the components that we were looking at here obviously are similar components that are used with XenApp. You're still going to need to have your Windows server for XenApp. You're going to have your licensing server. You can actually use your same licensing server for all of your Citrix products. So if you have multiple Citrix products in your environment, that can be the same licensing server. And the biggest piece of your XenApp server would be your applications and profiles. So on your XenApp server, it's just a standard Windows agent. It does VSS to quiesce the file system. If it's a virtual guest, you can grab the entire guest. If it's a physical box, you obviously can put an agent directly on it. And it's very straightforward, very easy to use. So I would definitely test it if you're looking at getting a complete product for your environment. And yeah, we definitely back that up.
Okay. Had another question come in. Are Windows servers required for this solution? So I guess I'll answer that kind of in two parts. From our side, no. We don't have to have any Windows servers involved in the solution. For the XenDesktop portion of what we're showing now, there obviously has to be a Windows server involved to host the Active Directory. So from that standpoint, yes, it's required for the XenDesktop deployment, but from the SEP side, you don't have to have a Windows server on our side to install the backup software on or for it to run properly. Reversely, if you want this exclusively on Windows and you don't want it to be hosted on Linux, you have that option as well. So we generally just recommend whatever platform, whoever is going to be using the software the most, whoever the administrator is going to be, whatever OS they're more comfortable with, we recommend they install the software on that platform. Just kind of gives them, an easier time working with it in the future. But to us, it doesn't make a difference at all. And to the end users at the end of the day, because it's Java-based, it's going to look identical on whatever they're running it on. So it really doesn't matter either. I've got another question from Barack. It says, can we have the PowerPoint presentation of this slides? Yes, we can make the slides available. We can either post them on our website and send out a link or send them to you directly.
And we're recording the entire session, so you'll be able to get the slides, the audio from it, and all of the demos that we're doing here.
Yep. Alrighty. Any other questions before we get started on our next one? All right, let's go ahead and we'll have another Q&A right at the end. We're just going to kind of go through, highlight the activation loss portion, I know we've talked about it a little bit. We had a question about it earlier, so let's go ahead and show you exactly what it looks like.
And we will get this demo started. And
so let's take a look at,
let me go ahead and put this to our window. And let's, okay.
our XenServer environment. We have 2 servers, and we have a 2008 R2 server. It is activated, and it is on the wire. So let's go ahead and set these up in the backup wizard, and we're going to go ahead and back up our 2008 R2 server, and we'll do a restore. We have to define the XenServers themselves, and when we create them, we'll go ahead and set them up as the Citrix XenServer, and you'll notice that immediately we get an extra tab. That extra tab will allow us to authenticate into the server without us having to add an additional agent. So we're going to do this, no agents. We're not going to do any modifications to the actual boxes themselves. We're just going to manage this all through the backup wizard. So let's go ahead and create both of our hosts. So we're going to create another new client. We're going to go ahead and define that again as a Citrix XenServer. And on our XenServer, we're going to go ahead and set up authentication. So we'll authenticate as our backup user. In this case, we're just going to use root, define our password, and then we have to define a data mover. The data mover can be any backup agent on the wire that's available to us. But in this case, we're going to select the backup server itself. We will go back, define the actual host name for the client. That way we have communication. We're going to use DNS to talk to it. So DNS definitely needs to be available in the network for this to work. And let's do a new backup. So we'll do a new backup, and we're going to back up a Citrix XenServer guest. So the guest name is Win2K8R2. You'll see it enumerates all of our guests, but we're just going to back up the one, and we'll go ahead and create that and start a backup. So we'll do an immediate start and get this guy rolling. When we set him up, we definitely want to create a full backup and create a cold backup. By creating a cold backup, we are telling it that we want it to grab the memory state. So instead of just doing a regular snapshot, it's going to grab the system and the memory state. We did choose a larger disk pool, and we'll go ahead and start the backup. So immediate start will go ahead and launch the backup job, and you'll notice immediately that it's going to go grab a memory state. So it pauses the system, not taking a snapshot right now because we're grabbing the memory state, but during a memory state grab, we do have a minimal amount of time where it's not going to actually have access for people to be able to do updates. So we're not going to be able to do changes here at this point, but we are doing a backup of the system and the memory state and all disks involved. So we're going to grab those, and if we go back to our backup session, we can actually go to our backup and see that the backup is active. The active backup window will tell us the overall throughput and give us specific individual information of the backup by server. So you'll notice that first off, on our throughput, we changed to a performance tab, and on our throughput section, we're going to get overall throughput for the entire server and everything we're backing up. So if we're backing up 10 servers here, you're going to see the throughput for all 10 servers. We're getting about 83 gigs an hour at the moment, and we can define what, or it will define what is getting backed up and what the information we have. So as we move forward, it will actually update the running tasks on the left, as you notice it just did. And those running tasks are broken down by server. So if we had 10 servers, we would actually see a new running task by server, and we would be able to determine performance by server and performance we're getting. So if we have a server that's having an issue, we would be able to identify, hey, we have to look at the server, see what it's doing, and go back and fix that one server or change the network, modify its settings to try to boost its performance. Now, if we take a look at the backup, we'll notice the backup is now successful. It's completed. So we're going to go ahead and create a restore on the other server. So if we go back over and let's go ahead and take a look at the actual tasks by client, we'll be able to do a restore task on the second XenServer. So we're going to take the server we backed up, we're going to restore it to a separate and different XenServer, and that way we're going to have a second server. We have multiple copies here. We get to select which one we want to restore from, and we're going to do a new target node because we want it to back up on the other target. We're going to leave it in the same location, but we are going to overwrite existing files. Let's shut the server down so that we don't have two servers with the same name and same authentication information up on the wire. That way we don't have any conflicts. They're also going to come up with the same IP address, so that wouldn't be good. And let's start a restore. It will, by default, restore to the local storage. So if we want to have it restore to a different location, we just set a different storage group as the default store instead of local storage. So we start the task and immediately it creates the server. So it sets up the server, sets up the info for the server config, gets it created, and then starts restoring the entire server. So all of the disks, all the data on there, and we'll have a new server that's set up. The restore window is very similar to the backup window. We'll see the active data. We'll see the total data size at 15.9 gig is the size of the server we're restoring, and we'll see our throughput window down at the bottom. When we do get done, it automatically starts it in a pause state, or I guess it doesn't start it, it sets it up in a pause state, and we're able to then come in, go to the console, start our server, and log in as if it were the original server, since it's just an exact copy of that server. So it's going to come up, have the same info, same login, same IP, same system state information, and it should be fully activated. Obviously, if we had done this with a regular snapshot and then copied it off and restored it, we would actually have it lose that information because it generates new information by default, so it does not set up a duplicate server and keep that information. In this case, we wanted it to be exactly duplicate. So instead of us doing additional tasks and reactivating, let's verify that this works successfully. So let's go ahead and go to our computer information. And it says, hey, you did a restart. Let's go to the computer information. Look at our properties. And if we look at the bottom, the activation status is activated. So we're able to keep all the same activation information, do a complete restore, second server, and in the Xen environment.
All right, perfect. Okay, anybody have any other questions? I've had a couple come in so far, so I'll give you guys a chance to ask any other questions. Jen, do you have anything to add before we go into the questions?
Not at this point. I think we're seeing a good demo as far as how the restore works, and obviously seeing that it does keep the activation information. I don't know if there's more questions on that. We've shown that in more detail. I know there was questions on what that activation information was before, so
right.
Hopefully that helped answer that.
Okay. So I had a question come in from from Mary. It says, we're considering virtualizing 2,400 individual desktops because, as you know, there's a lot of time spent on maintenance and maintaining those. What's to be expected on maintenance using SEP's XenDesktop solution? So basically, I mean, as you know, anytime you're virtualizing that many desktops, and obviously I would imagine since you're on this webinar, you're probably going to use Citrix for that, you're going to cut costs across the board. You know, whether that be through Citrix enabling that or through SEP. I think that using both products in conjunction is probably going to maximize your savings. Obviously, anytime you take that many physical hardware desktops and virtualize those, you're going to see a pretty good cost savings right off the bat. And we've worked with several customers that have really been grateful for that technology to be able to do that. On our side, on the SEP side, you're definitely going to see an overall lower cost for backing up that desktop environment as well. You won't need to put individual client licenses on every single desktop to have those work. It's just on a per seat basis, for our bundles that we have. So right off the bat, out of the gates, you're definitely going to see, some reduction in cost and, an overall performance increase and value added. So again, what we're showcasing, everything is Citrix ready. We've worked with Citrix for several years now. It's been a great partnership, and we're trying to work in conjunction with them to really roll out products that really add value to the end user right off the bat. It's not something that you have to really wait around for a while to see how it's going to work and how it's going to perform. You can feel very confident right out of the gates. It's going to integrate well, it's going to work well, and there is value added there, and also a cost saving. So hopefully that question is answered. Let's see, any other questions?
And you're obviously getting two great products that integrate well together and complement each other. So
Yep.
Running them both together is definitely a great gain for the environment.
Alrighty, so once again, we are going to post this webinar online. We'll send out some links for it. We are also going to post the demos that we did today. Those will be posted separately on our website as well. We can also send out a link to download the slides, or just send a copy of the slides out to everybody. No problem with that. Contact information, everything will be included. If anyone has any follow-up questions, please contact us. If you guys would like to set up or arrange a proof of concept in your environment, we're willing to work with you on that and kind of give you some pointers on how to get that set up. Maybe have some of our techs help along the way, answer questions. So any questions, we invite you to contact us. Again, thank you for your time. We look forward to seeing you guys. Hopefully you will all be at Citrix Synergy in San Francisco in May of 2012. If you guys are there, please stop by our booth and say hi, and hopefully we'll talk to a lot of you before then. I was wrapping up, but we did get another question in real quick. Let's go ahead and answer this one before we jump off. It says, do you plan on having a GUI on XenCenter? From Barack. Actually, Barack, we are in the process of doing that now, and we will be announcing that here shortly, officially. So yeah, it's in the works. It's not an official release yet, but it will definitely be in place by Synergy, and probably quite a bit sooner. I would imagine Q1. We'll be rolling that out. So, and then a follow-up to that, do you guys have a virtual appliance set server for XenServer? And that's actually something we're working on right now as well. And honestly, I would have to check with development to see exactly where that is. It might be done. Do you know?
We can verify where that's at, but obviously it's just a Linux box with SEP already configured and database there. So all you have to do is launch your virtual appliance and then add a client somewhere so you can go ahead and talk to your backups, and it makes it a little easier for your setup. Again, the setup itself is real fast, so it's not that big of a deal either way, but it's available just if you want to save a little bit of time.
Yeah, and I know it is in the works of being a package bundle that someone would just go online and just download and spin up the VM, and it would be up and functioning. So to be 100% honest with you, I just need to check and see where we are in the process. So hope that answers your question, Barack, and yep, you are welcome. All right. Looks like that's about it. We're going to wrap it up, folks. Again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time. We know you guys are busy. We really appreciate you joining. Again, please join us for our ongoing webinar series. We will send out some notifications on upcoming webinars and events, and the next one should be in early January. So until then, happy holidays, safe holidays. We wish you all the best, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.